Our next speaker is Fanny Duckert from the University of Oslo. Fanny is the Dean of Social Sciences at the university. Previously was the chairman of the Department of Psychology at the university. Fanny used to be the chair of the Norwegian Research Council's program board called Norwegian Global Partner, NORGLOBAL Board, which I'm hoping we're going to hear a little bit about at some point. If we don't hear about it, I'm going to ask you about that a little bit later, which is a very interesting Norwegian initiative that puts together global environmental change research, development and aid research, and in a lot of different dimensions, and a good example of moving theory into practice, I think, in many ways. But with no further ado, Fanny, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you, Heide, for your very impressive and interesting presentation. And in a way, I'm coming from the opposite range here, where I am one of the foot people and trying to make things work in practice. And that is dirty work, it's slow work, it's not easy to put that into those elegant models. But I also have been interested in the differences between what we call like multidisciplinary science, which is like a relay where we run to each other with bits and pieces of information trying to forward this into a more extensive knowledge process. But that is different from what we would call, as Heide also said, the interdisciplinary science, which is a much deeper level of collaboration in which processes such as evaluation or development of a plan or research is done jointly. And we have here also some of the challenges that was pointed out earlier today. And for me, the challenge and what I've been trying to do throughout my career is to actually bring people together in what we would call interdisciplinary science. And the interesting thing for me is that by training, I'm a psychologist, a clinical psychologist. In addition, I've been doing some work in organizational psychology and in international health. And I think in this perspective, my own background can be interesting, because this is about how you do start in one end and then move on. And also like Heide, I have a strong relationship to South Africa. My first visit was in 1994, 3 weeks after liberation. And it made a lasting impact, so deep that I decided I wanted to stay there, do things. I lived there part of the year, and I've been involved with academic capacity building, especially at the historically black universities, with a focus especially on health issues. So, as you can see here, for some years, I run a project called the Psychology Cooperation Programme, which was mainly between the University of Oslo and University of Limpopo and University of Western Cape, where we did academic capacity building and training, especially PhD programs, and making new programs in clinical psychology and working together with health professions. And then I moved on to a more like kind of action research program, which we called, it's a spelling error, responsibility in the area of AIDS, which had as focus to build care and support systems for HIV positive individuals in rural areas in South Africa. And then I moved slowly on into the more administrative kind of jobs. And I was for many years chair of the board of the Norwegian Programme for Education, Research and Development, that some of you know, the NUFE program, and which also included later the Norwegian Master Programme, NOMA. And in the period 2009 to 2011, I was the chair of the board of NORGLOBAL. And from 2012, I am now the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences at the University of Oslo. So these are the background where I'm trying to share some of my experiences with you. And first a little about the NUFE program. I'll not go into details, but it's a rather old program, and it was funded by NORAD and administered by Norwegian Centre of International Cooperation, CU. The goal of this program, and taking the perspective of this day, this was a surprisingly modern program, even if it was funded in 1991. And the goal was to support the development of sustainable capacity for research and research-based higher education in developing countries, relevant to national development and poverty reduction, and to contribute to enhanced academic collaboration in the South and between South and North. So it had really quite ambitious goals. And there were important elements in the NUFE program because it had a double purpose. It should both involve academic capacity building in the South, but also stimulation of interest and involvement in developmental research at higher education institutions in Norway. So it's, in a way, both perspectives. And here, it's a very strong reinforcement of interdisciplinary research. And the main factor was shared research interest among participants. It's very much a bottom-up kind of process. And it was based on participants' enthusiasm and personal involvement. And it was low cost. It's really much value for the money. And I would then just briefly say a little about what, how we, in the projects I have been involved, what have come out of them. And it's like a long time cooperation period. And one very important element in this project were to make networks, international scientist networks of high quality, and also have high degree of interdisciplinarity in the research projects. In all the projects, there have always been groups like medical doctors, nurses, social scientists, also like from natural sciences, informatics. We have one part about developing new techniques for sharing health data. So there have always been this kind of complicated and stimulating varied groups. What we have found as a very important tool is to do staff exchange, not only student exchange programs. We have huge student exchange programs between Norway and South Africa, but it involves the teachers. It means that we have had visiting lecturers coming from South Africa to Norway and vice versa. Supervising have been in joint teams so that all PhDs have had supervisors both in Norway and South Africa. Also, the students doing research for their master's thesis. Or we also made training opportunities for Norwegian students in South Africa, psychologists, medical doctors, and dentists. And the important part of that training was that our students got a much wider exposure, and they had local supervisors. And when, so we have, in a way, built up a team that consists of teachers and students, both from South Africa and Norway. And this had some secondary benefits because the students were involved in the ongoing research projects, and also what we managed to create was welcoming networks, both in South Africa and Norway. So when South African students came to Norway, we had always a network of Norwegian students that knew both the situation in South Africa and very often the students that came. And they were the welcoming committee, they were guides and giving social support for fresh students in Norway. And what we know is that it can be very tough to be a new student in a new environment, and it went both ways. So, and what we saw was also that these students taking part in these networks, they were also recruits for continuing research, recruits for graduate studies, and also for PhD projects. So we built up a community that involved both students and teachers from both sides. And also we could see that these, again, after some years, meant that a lot of our young students moved into being researchers, and also several of these people involved in the previous project now, for instance, have got EU grants and continue with the research activities. Also, what we found as a very, very important tool was the PhD candidates that were recruited both in Norway and South Africa. They were in what we call a sandwich model. I don't know if that's a well-known concept. Probably, I think all the Scandinavian countries do that as a tool. But it's, again, both ways. We often think that it's good for the university in South to have the students in sandwich models, but it's also good for the Norwegian students because they need the exposure. And it's interesting, even if we are talking about international and global research, I will talk just about Norway, that Norwegian scientists are often surprisingly naive about the culture, the situation in South. So they create kind of ideas, and they need to get input in order to get those changed or adjusted to realities. And another little thing that was important in increasing academic outputs is that we heavily advocated PhD dissemination of reports, the PhD works, in the format of articles. At that time in South Africa, they only had monographs, and we went in very strongly to, not to say you shouldn't do it, but to give the opportunity of doing it by way of articles. And the reason for that was that articles are produced in a very different way than monographs. It's a different kind of training. It's a different way of dissemination your research results. And it increased the academic outputs at the universities, because especially the historically black universities had a very, very low academic output, hardly any scientific articles. So by putting this in, we were able to increase the articles. And the good thing also was that in articles you can have more than one author, and we realized that by being co-authors on the PhD candidate articles, it increased the chance of getting them published in internationally well-credited journals. So we were working on all these things in order to help the universities become real universities, not just like Bush colleges. That was the situation in mid-90s. And we also experimented in various ways of dissemination results. For instance, when we did our field studies into the local rural communities, how should we be able to give back our results in a way that it benefited the rural community? And we then also did a lot of new ways of dissemination. We made films. We had professional storytellers, and we made drama groups and involving the local community both in producing information and take the results back and get the results into a format that the local community could find useful. So all in all, we did a lot of things in order to try to move things and for benefit both in Norway and in South Africa. And we, in a way, were very happy with the results, but I think also, like you pointed out, Heide, this is hard work. It's to develop and running this kind of research projects are very, very complicated. The supervision and teaching is much more time-consuming than the ones you do at home. It's both a question of a reculture of learning at many of these universities. It's also about a different intellectual and academic traditions. So if we want to bring our students into the international academic society, they need also a lot of retraining or additional training. And that means getting out an academic publication will take maybe about double the time as you do with a local publications. So the academic output for the researcher will be rather low. And also a big problem is that the investment and development processes is not meriting at the universities in Norway. So it doesn't help your academic career. And we see a challenge that this is something you can do when you are well established. So you have your position and you have your professorship. It's much more difficult to bring new academics into it that want to do an academic career because it's costly and the awards are not as visible as many other places. It's also a problem that this kind of investments or research activities are not involved in the strategic plans for most universities. You have all, like University of Oslo, the strategic plans for the next 10 years. It's about bringing the university up to be a top university. It's have cooperation with the best universities in the world. So, and then far down in a little corner it says something about global responsibilities and that they, of course, want to be and support the rest of the world. But these are very often like the nice words, but with not much content and not many tools for actually advocating this in practice. So that's some of the challenges in doing this kind of work. But anyway, I think that the NUFE program was a very good and fruitful program. But it was an old program, and the structure was in many ways also old-fashioned, so it has been phased out and now been replaced with a new program that is supposed to do some of the same thing. Unfortunately, it has been rather delayed, almost 2 years delayed, which is rather worrying. But we will see. Now the first call for seed money has just been done, and major calls will follow. But it means we don't really know too much about how this will work. So then I will switch over to the NORGLOBAL Programme, which is another important area where I learned a lot. And this program was established in 2009 by the Norwegian Research Council. And again, it's have some of the same double purpose. It is to strengthen research in Norway and development in developing countries, as well as ensure an effective, flexible, visible, and coherent organizational research. So you can see there are a lot of ambitions for this program. And it's also focusing at strengthening the research capacity of developing countries, so it has this double perspective. Since the board is very important, I just quickly, not that you should, I will not read all the names, but as you will realize by this quick glimpse is that among the board members there is a wide range of qualifications, experience, and capacity, which is part of making this program possible. Because, as you can see, the activities are many and steadily increasing, and you can see that it's a very wide range of activities, and not all of these activities you feel naturally belong to each other. And that has something to do with the history of this program, because the Research Council had a lot of small programs here and there, and they wanted to combine them and make a bigger, more profiled program that also could have a space in creating and encouraging global research on in a wider level. And that means that this program is exciting, but threatened by being just a kilt of different topics. So the challenge for the board members is to keep this together and keep up to have a NORGLOBAL identity and feel that we are part of the same board or the same program. And if you look at strategic challenges, we can recognize them. They are very much in line with what Heide told us in her presentation. So what are the strategic tools? How to get to meet these challenges? And NORGLOBAL has quite a number of strategic tools. One is, of course, the main thing is to finance projects. And one of the important things that I think NORGLOBAL does, and because we have these very highly competent board members, is that going through the project and checking, are they really global? Are they realistic? Are they addressing the kind of questions or challenges that we need to investigate? So they can adjust financing, they can ask for saying, no, in this program we need economic competency. So you can have money on if you go and get a competent economic into the project. So it's a way of also shaping project, not only just giving money, but also having a dialogue with the people applying for project funding. And this makes it a little complicated because often we need to have the applications back again. We send them and say, okay, so you have to readjust, then we'll see what are you coming up with, and say okay or no. So it's a lot of work with the application procedures. And also, there are some grants, specific grants, that I think are important, like, for instance, fellowship grants. It's one of the sub-projects that young Norwegian researchers will be able to visit agricultural research centers all over the world within this framework. There are also grants for researchers from South to participate in research projects in Norway, both in developing and in running projects in Norway, meaning that if it's also linked up to other projects or programs in the Research Council, so that a project can get funding from another program, and then NORGLOBAL can add on, so that you get into the project relevant researchers from other parts of the world. And also important is that there is earmarking of funding to be spent at Southern partners in other parts of the world, meaning that it will improve the global aspect of the research. And then again, also in this, it's not only about research, but it's also about education of PhD candidates, that it's possible to recruit PhD candidates as part of the research activities. And also, what is very important is the focus on building a NORGLOBAL culture and create meeting places for dialogues between researchers, stakeholders, and users, like politicians, bureaucrats, journalists. And that means for this program, dissemination activities are extremely important. And we have been experimenting with different formats. It's like having thematic conferences, having speed talks, 5 minutes presentations, mini seminars, fact sheets, and also identifying expert researchers that can be invited to give presentations, like, for instance, in the ministries, where they are very interested in topics, they don't have much time, but they need to talk with the researchers. So the conference, the thematic conferences, is a place where they can meet the researchers and follow up with mini seminars, like in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or invite the researchers for small workshops. And also, like I said, funding schemes adding up on projects. And to just give you a few examples of one way of dissemination, we know that stakeholders are very busy. So what we have been doing is to have these double-page presentations. It's very important to bring in the researcher involved with a photo so that they can look at those and say, oh, which researcher is that? So it's easy to identify, and when you want an expert or to invite an expert, you know where to catch up on that person. These are some of the tools in trying to make things happen in practice. But then, the last part here is about thinking a little. Now I'm running a faculty as a dean. I've been doing that for a little more than a year. And this is a traditional faculty at a traditional university, the oldest, biggest in Norway. And up to including the last dean, it was very little interested in multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary research. They were very proud of. This is a strong disciplinary faculty. We cooperate with the rest of the world, but we don't speak with each other. And also, all funding was in the format of getting directly down to the departments with very few incentives to the dean and the staff, the faculty level. And so what, and there have been some few initiatives are trying to do things a little more across, but not much happened. And when I was a fresh dean, I brought this with me, this knowledge. And this is a part of my previous identity because I've been working with organizational change. And Cotter has been one, I think, says it very nicely when transformation efforts fail, because mostly they do. And then he said it's because lack of vision, not establishing a great enough sense of urgency, not creating a powerful enough guiding coalition, under-communicating the vision, not removing obstacles to the vision, not planning for and creating short-term wins, declaring victory too soon, and not anchoring changes in the organization's culture. So I thought, okay, so what can I do? Of course, I need a vision. And I have a vision. So the important thing was then to make visions that gives direction. Where are we going to move? What is the content? How can we reach the vision? And so I made it as the first point in my declaration of intentions as a new dean, that global research is necessary, not only for the world, but for Norway and our faculty, that we cannot survive. We cannot do top-class research without bringing in the world into our faculty, and also make changes or start to communicate across. Cotter says you need to create a sense of urgency, and there are three alternatives. Either it could be a crisis, we have to do it. And of course the global thing can be, or the world will collapse. I don't think my researcher would go for that. It could be a potential crisis, and we, of course, that is very clear. But then also it's opportunity. So what I've been doing is very much giving information, lecturing, having workshops, and it's both about how to survive in the world to come, academically and practically, and also what is, because the problem, or it's a good thing in one way, the economy at the faculty is quite good, so we don't lack money. But, so what I have to, in a way, give information about, this is about to change. That for all we know, funding of research will change, and it will change much quicker than you are aware of, and giving that impact in a lot of different ways, so that we are okay now, but if we are going to survive in the future, there will be changes that we have to deal with. Also, it's important to form a powerful guiding coalition with high legitimacy. It must be a relevant group. We must have power and resources. And one of the things I did as part of being a new dean is to go to walk around, to meet people, to be curious, to ask about information. What is happening in this faculty, now this department? What are you doing? What are you interested in? And I also invited all the heads of department for dinner, one at a time. Nice, cozy restaurant, a bottle of wine, and interviewing them. So what are your ambitions? What is happening in your department? Where are you moving? So if you are going to be ambitious for your own teams, where are you moving? Who are your best scientists, and how can we go about it in order to make alliances and also to find out where is the enthusiasm. Because I think if you are going to make changes, you need to build on enthusiasm. And every time I suggest something, then there will be at least one of the heads saying, no, I don't like this. No, I don't think this is important. No, we don't do this. And then I always say, it's okay. This is completely voluntary. I will start with the ones who are enthusiastic. So who are enthusiastic here? And very often there are some, because I did my footwork. And that means also that I establish more kind of working groups, trying to identify, develop, and we give seed money for these kind of new investments. And we also, of course, get feedback, and I follow it up. So, and then it's important to communicate the vision. Never let go. Go on, say the same things, new things, but to remind people about what is the vision, where do we want to go, how are we going to make this happen in practice, and also use the positive people as vehicles for communicating. So I'm not saying, so what is my vision? I say, okay, Knut, could you please say, what is the vision here now? Can you, let's hear. And then bring in everyone that I think that can be done. Also, I think this is often underestimated, because people may be willing to do changes, but there are too many obstacles in the system. The system is not geared for new and experimental activities. There are all these communication problems, who is reporting where, what kind of reports do we need, and also that the meriting system is not allowing for new ways of thinking. So what we are doing is going now through all the administrative routines and look at them. So what are the obstacles for working more interdisciplinary? What are the obstacles for working more globally? And for some of them I can do, for example, that we have now a rule that if you supervise a PhD candidate from South, even if that candidate is not graduating from our university, still you can get merit for the supervision. So, and also I try to have always some buffers, also money-wise, for saying, yeah, let's try. Let's see if it works. Let's try this and try that. And if it doesn't work, it's not a catastrophe, but we will learn something from it. Like, for instance, we had, I suddenly realized that we had in the faculty 4 different researchers all working in one way or other with Indonesia, different institutions, universities in Indonesia, and none of those 4 researchers talked together. So first thing was bring them together and invest in inviting also people from outside, and then we will move this up on the faculty level, and we will give you support, and meaning that you can have higher ambitions, and we can move this into a much more global-oriented program. We should also be aware we need short-term wins, because it's hard, complicated, also rather painful. So we need to establish performance improvements, recognize and reward employees involved in improvements. Again, a combination of seed money. It doesn't necessarily need to be huge amounts of money. It's just as important with the personal recognition and the symbolic reinforcements that make our researchers or people involved feeling seen and appreciated. And also be very careful about promoting people, to be aware what is happening, where are the good ones, what are they doing, this is interesting, bringing up to the consciousness of the university rector, or writing chronicles about it and making people feel that this is important work. It's important for the faculty, it's important for the university. And it's also important to consolidate improvement and continue with changes, because for most changes, it's easy. You feel very enthusiastic in the beginning and thinking, oh no, everything is fine. And then suddenly you realize that it moves back to the traditional ways of thinking and doing. So you must have this long-term perspective that it takes time. Everything takes time to develop and consolidate. And so we think about what are winning teams, how do they look? They have common goals, they have clearly defined roles, there is commitment, support and encouragement, trust and respect, communication, competence and skills, and again to function as a unity rather than as a group of individuals. And regular meetings, even if they don't guarantee in it themselves effective teamwork, any opportunity for communication improves the relationships. And finally, we have so far managed to get up and running 2 initiatives based at the faculty. One is the University of Oslo Energy Initiative, which is a combination. I think, again, it's been made together by people from actually all faculties except theology. But all the other faculties have been involved in making a model, and it's hosted by the Faculty of Social Science, and it's headed by one of the top scientists from natural sciences, and we think that we will be able to build something that is sustainable and will help. The challenge just now, you talked about Carnegie and Heddy, that is to get the energy initiative to actually involve themselves with a group in the faculty that's involved in climate. So, but that's the next step. And that's why things take time. It's this, you get it one step at the head, and then you gradually have to work, expand, because it's not the natural approach for our academic scientists. So you really have to work and work and work in order to move them. And also another initiative that is about to be started just this semester or this year, which is try to call Oslo School of Global Governance, which is also an interesting, exciting new initiative that we hope we will be able to get up and running. So, as you can see, this is, it's not as elegant. It's a complicated way of working, and you never succeed completely. But I think if everyone takes a little step at a time, and we don't lose the vision, because I think the vision needs to be there as a guiding principle if we are able to do things in practice and get closer to the beautiful models that we saw earlier today. So, thank you.